In this video we will take our first look at a non-classic era episode. Today we will dive into one of my favourite episodes from the hit and model era of the show. Hello, you're watching Can You See Fish, and today we will be reviewing Sir Handel in Charge. Sir Handel in Charge is the 25th episode of the 11th series of Thomas & Friends. It was written by Simon Spencer and narrated by Michael Angelis in the UK and Michael Brandon in the US. Here's the story. The Thing Controller leaves his railway for the day and puts Sir Handel in charge of finding engines to bring different parts of Thomas's special to the transfer yards. Sir Handel finds Mighty Mac, Rusty, Peter, Sam and Duncan at different points on the line, and despite each of them saying that they would be good for the job, Sir Handel is too arrogant to listen to them and orders them to wait for him to return and see if they are the best engine. Something that Mr. Percival told him not to do. By the time Sir Handel returns to the transfer yards, Thomas is waiting, but of course there is no special for him to collect, and Sir Handel realises his mistake. Luckily, he is able to travel up the line and find each engine that he met waiting for him, and they bring Thomas's goods on time. The Thing Controller arrives on board James, and the episode ends with Sir Handel stating that he enjoyed his day in charge. So what's notable about this episode? Well, the only real notable thing is that it marks Sir Handel's last episode where he's the main character in the show to date, and when looking at the dark places that the show is headed for, I think that it's safe to say that we won't be seeing him in a lead again anytime soon. Now, a lot of people in this community downright hate the hit model era of the show, and Sir Handel in Charge is one of those episodes that I see getting bashed a lot, and I personally don't get it. Now, it would be stupid for me to deny that nostalgia doesn't play a part in my judgment of this episode, as I have many happy memories of watching this on the Engines and Escapades DVD at my grandparents' as a young child. Despite this episode being very much a standard Three Strikes episode, I feel like this is Sir Handel's true return to the show. The team really screwed up the characters of the narrow gauge engines in this era. They made Scarlowy and Renaeus young for some reason, despite them previously being established as old timers and some of the oldest on Sodor, if not the oldest. And when they brought Sir Handel back in the 10th series, they inexplicably made him this ancient and wise character rather than a rude and selfish one. I think that if you remove the opening lines about Sir Handel being a grand old engine, he seems like he somewhat has his original personality back in this episode. He's definitely egotistical and self-centered, as he's so busy thinking about being in charge that he ignores both the Thing Controller and his friends, but he's also intelligent enough to remember that he told them to wait and that he can now go back and find them. So what else is good about this episode? Well, as I said, the story isn't very much, but the visuals are great. I love the shot at the start of Sir Handel crossing the causeway, and I've always liked the mountain village set. Alongside that, there's some other nice shots sprinkled throughout. Another thing I really enjoy is Sir Handel's theme in this episode, and it's one of my favourites from the hit model era of the show. Generally the music ranges from okay to good in this era of the show. There are a couple of themes that are kind of hit and miss, but this one is really good. With all that being said, I think that Sir Handel in Charge is a criminally underrated episode, and I give it a 6.5 out of 10. You've been watching Can You See Fish, and until next time, goodbye.